I've been using the Pixel 9 for a week now after pre-ordering it the day it was announced. I bought this phone with my own money, so these are going to be my honest thoughts about the phone so far. So, let's get into it. Let's start with what you get in the box, which is not much at all. I picked up one of Google's official Pixel 9 cases in Obsidian to pair with the phone. In the Pixel 9 box, you get the Pixel 9 itself. As you can see, I went for the porcelain colour. Under the phone, you get a USB-C to USB-C charging cable, and finally a SIM ejector tool and some paperwork. Moving on to the design, and I love it. It's clearly built from premium materials with Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and back, and side rails that are made of matte aluminium, which continues into the camera module design. In fact, the camera bump looks like a bit of an island, standing out from the rest of the phone, so I'm going to call it that for the rest of this video. This island keeps its signature Pixel standout design by being pretty massive and retaining the Pixel glass pill that houses both the phone's rear-facing cameras. The phone feels premium in every aspect. I like the new iPhone-esque boxier design, which is actually very comfortable to hold due to the edges being rounded slightly. The porcelain colour that I chose helps to hide fingerprints on the super glossy back if you use your phone without a case, which was a real problem that I had with my Obsidian Pixel 8. I honestly wish Google would make the non-Pro Pixels matte material all over, like with the Pixel 8a, but at the end of the day, I always put my phone in a case to keep it protected, so this doesn't really bother me too much. Speaking of cases, I've been impressed with Google's official case for the Pixel 9. The case is grippy, maintains the nice tactile clicky button feel, and provides a lip around the screen and camera bump that should serve to protect these areas from the occasional drop or bump. The case also smooths out the pretty sharp edges of the camera island, which makes the phone even more comfortable to hold. The only downside I would highlight about the case is that it seems to show oil from your skin pretty clearly, at least in this obsidian colour. It's not something that particularly bothers me, but it might bother you, which is why I think it's worth mentioning. The 6.3-inch screen on this phone doesn't feel much different from the Pixel 8 to be honest, being only 0.1 inches larger with the same 1080p resolution and capable of the same variable refresh rate between 60 and 120 Hz. This isn't a bad thing, as I really like the screen on the 8. From an aesthetic standpoint, the Pixel 9 has pleasingly got perfectly symmetrical bezels all around the phone, which makes it look super clean. The screen gets even brighter this year with a peak brightness of 2700 nits, and also has a higher 2:1 contrast ratio over the 8 and 8a's 1:1. Side by side, although the top brightness is noticeably brighter on the 9, the Pixel 8 and 8a both get bright enough to see clearly outside, and the contrast ratio difference is barely noticeable to my eyes, so I reckon the upgrade here is fairly minor in practical use. Under the screen, the Pixel 9 has abandoned the old optical fingerprint sensor for a new ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, and my first impressions of this have been very good. It feels a lot more accurate than the previous generation, with me experiencing a lot less times where the phone just doesn't recognise my fingerprint. I've still found that, at least for me, it still seems to struggle a bit when my hands are wet, but not to the extent the 8 series did. This was a much needed improvement in the Pixel lineup, and really improves the quality of life of using the Pixel 9, as it's something you have to engage with every single time you unlock the phone. This is probably one of the best upgrades on this phone in my opinion. Moving to the top and bottom of the phone, and the speakers on the Pixel 9 sound clear and get nice and loud without distorting, and sounds slightly better to my ears than the Pixel 8 speakers, and definitely beats out the Pixel 8a. This is a fairly minor thing, but I often listen to podcasts or music through my phone's speakers when I'm doing things around the house, so this is actually something that's quite important to me. In terms of the general performance of the phone feels quick, just like the Pixel 8 series did for me, and I still love Pixel OS with its clean design and excellent software features. I haven't experienced any weird glitches yet, but I have also only been using the phone for a week, so I'll save judgment on this until I've used the phone for longer. Thanks to the comments many of you Pixel users have left on my previous videos, I'm fairly sure most of the random software glitches I've experienced on my Pixel 8 and 8a in the past, such as apps loading infinitely, isn't down to the hardware, but either the apps themselves or Pixel OS. So I wouldn't be surprised if I end up experiencing them on the Pixel 9 over time too. I'll report back in a few months and we can see. In terms of gaming performance, the Pixel 9 has had plenty of power for my use. The only mobile game I really play is Call of Duty Warzone Mobile, so my experience is fairly limited, but with all the graphics settings set to their highest and the frame rate uncapped, I can achieve around a steady 50 to 60 frames per second, which is good enough in my opinion for mobile gaming. However, you aren't able to take advantage of the 120Hz screen unless you lower some of those settings, and this might not cut it for the more serious mobile gamers out there. But then again, I think we can all agree that there are better phones out there for mobile gaming if that's your main focus. The phone gets warm when you're gaming for fairly long periods, over about 30 minutes, but I've played over an hour and I've had no issues with the phone feeling slower or lagging, so it seems like the heat is able to dissipate fast enough, which is good. Google wasn't overly clear about whether this phone has a vapor chamber like the Pixel 9 Pro does. However, based on their language in the keynote where they specifically talked about the Pixel 9 Pro when mentioning the vapor chamber, I'm assuming the Pixel 9 doesn't have it. The only times the phone has actually got warm is when I'm gaming, downloading large files such as when I was installing all my apps when setting up the phone, or when using the camera excessively for filming 4K videos, but it's not overheated on me at all. Now let's move on to the software features, because the Pixel 9 has introduced some new stuff along with some more functionality with Gemini. These features are powered by the new Tensor G4 chip, which isn't really much of an upgrade in terms of overall computing performance, but apparently brings some significant upgrades in how it can process AI tasks. It's also helped along by 12GB of RAM, which is a whole 50% more than the 8GB that was in the Pixel 8, so a nice upgrade for the longevity of this phone. I'm only going to be able to talk about the features that I have access to, so this excludes Gemini Live, which is only available for those with a Google One AI Premium subscription, Call Notes, which just doesn't seem to be available in the UK from what I can see, and Zoom Enhance and Super Res Zoom Video, which are both exclusive to the 9 Pro phones. If you're interested in any of those features, then I'd recommend checking out any of the many Pixel 9 Pro reviews out there. Of the features I do have access to, firstly, the new Pixel Screenshots app allows you to search through all of your screenshots using natural language to find specific things more easily. I personally rarely take screenshots to remember things, so I haven't found a use for this app yet, but it seems to work pretty well if you need to find a specific screenshot. Within the camera, we now get the Add Me feature that allows you to add yourself into a group photo after it has been taken by allowing another person to take another photo with you in it, and then the phone intelligently cuts you out and adds you into the photo. I also haven't found a real use for this yet because I don't take a huge amount of group photos when I'm out with friends. I also would probably just take a selfie, which would take like 5 seconds as opposed to like a minute with the Add Me feature. Continuing in photos, you can now reimagine parts of a photo using generative AI to add elements into the photo that were not there before. This feature is actually quite fun, and I've used it mainly for messing around. For example, I reimagined a photo of one of my rabbits so they were wearing a suit, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. I found it's great for quick, fun edits and sending these to a friend for a good laugh, which makes it useful enough for me to say it's a good feature. You also get the new auto frame feature that will use generative AI to expand your images so you can improve the framing if you mess this up when you initially took the photo. This mainly works pretty well, but the main downside is you don't get the freedom to expand the photo to whatever size you want, like you can in Photoshop. But Google instead gives you a selection of generated images at different aspect ratios, which ultimately gives you less control. Google has also given us the new Pixel Studio app, which, like the Reimagine feature, is just quite fun. This allows you to use a prompt to generate an image, and what has impressed me about this is how quick it is, and the quality of the results. It can generate an image in about 3 to 4 seconds, which is quick enough that if you don't like the result, you can very quickly generate a new image from the same prompt until you get a result you're happy with. Plus, I think the results that it produces are actually really good considering this is apparently done on the device itself. One weird thing is that right now you can seemingly easily generate copyrighted material, which just shows how much data Google has scraped from the web to make this model work. I can generate an almost perfect image of a minion, which is kinda nuts. The app requires you to be connected to the internet, but considering how fast the generation happens, I don't think this is to help it generate the result, but to check the prompt meets Google's guidelines before it generates anything. It doesn't let you generate anything related to a person just now, but I think you could get some really cool results if Google eventually allows this. This feature is pretty much a gimmick in my eyes, but it's a cool gimmick that's executed really well in my opinion, so I'm not mad it exists. A little note here though is that Google has basically added this feature to the web version of Gemini with the addition of their Imagen 3 model, which allows you to generate images with prompts. So you can basically access this feature on any phone by just using Gemini via your web browser. There's also a new Pixel Weather app that allows you to generate an AI summary of the weather for the day, which is quite helpful. I think it would be cool if you could set the parameters about which data you're mainly interested in, such as predicted rainfall, so it would tailor the AI summary to the things you care about. But maybe that's something that Google can add in the settings down the line. One key thing I was interested in was to see if any of the AI features were actually quicker on the Pixel 9 as opposed to the 8 series. So I compared a few side by side on the Pixel 9 versus the Pixel 8a, the most budget-friendly phone in the 8 series. For most of the features that were present on both, such as Magic Editor, Gemini as your assistant, and some other summarization features, I honestly found there to be very little to no difference between the two phones, as a lot of the processes were done in the cloud rather than on device. price. I'm interested to see how Google makes use of the extra RAM in the Pixel 9 going forward, but it's hard to compare these two properly without features like Pixel Studio or Pixel Screenshots being available on the 8A, as I think this is where the new chip and RAM may make a difference. Moving on to the battery, and it is slightly larger this year, with Google giving us 4700 mAh over the Pixel 8's 4575 mAh. In the last week, I'm happy to report that the battery seems significantly improved over my experience with both the 8 and 8A, with both those phones having fairly average battery life that just about lasted a day with moderate to heavy use. With the Pixel 9, with mixed and fairly heavy use, I've been getting 4 to 5 hours of screen on time with between 20 to 30% battery left at the end of the day, which is very good compared to my experience with the 8 and 8A. This is with me taking the phone off charge at around 6:30 AM and ending the day around 10:30 PM. If you're using the phone for more intensive tasks like gaming or filming long videos, then it's going to run down faster, but that's to be expected. Battery life is definitely something that I need to test more long term with more use cases, but it's looking great so far. Another thing that seems to improve the battery life is that there is a new modem in the 9 this year, and it seems to be more efficient, which was a much needed improvement. The modem also seems to be better at just being a modem, with it seemingly staying connected to mobile data more reliably than the Pixel 8 series. For example, there is a town on my journey to work which it was a dead spot for my Pixel 8, but the Pixel 9 still has internet when I'm in the same location. However, I've only really used this in my area, so I'll reserve judgment on this for a longer term review when I've tested it in more varied locations. According to the specs, charging this year has actually had a downgrade, which is kind of weird. The Pixel 9 supports the same 27 watt wired charging as the Pixel 8, but can actually only charge at a maximum of 15 watts wirelessly using Google's specific fast wireless charger, as opposed to the 18 watts on the Pixel 8. This seems kind of odd that this speed has been lowered, especially as you have a larger battery this year, so it's worth noting. The cameras this year have seen some nice upgrades over the Pixel 8, which is great, and we've actually switched over to filming on the Pixel 9 for this section of the video so you can see what it looks like. Firstly, we get the same 50 megapixel main camera as we had in the Pixel 8, and that's what we've been filming this section on so far. But Google has upgraded the 12 megapixel ultra wide that we got in the 8 to this new 48 megapixel ultra wide that we're filming on now on the Pixel 9. This upgrade actually makes a difference in my experience and provides sharper, more detailed results from this camera, which is great, although the images from the ultra wide are still pretty soft in the corners. We also get an improved front facing camera, which we're now filming on. While the resolution is the same 10.5 megapixels as on the Pixel 8, rather than the 42 megapixels that you get on the 9 Pro phones, the Pixel 9's front facing camera has autofocus where the 8 only had fixed focus last year. This makes the quality slightly better, as you're not going to be constantly slightly out of focus as you were on the Pixel 8. And this is the same front-facing camera that was featured on the Pixel 8 Pro last year. While it would be nice to have the extra resolution that the Pixel 9 Pro gets here, at the end of the day, 10.5 megapixels is more than enough for selfies and video calls, and you can just turn the phone around if you want to get better quality selfies. This is what handheld video out of the main 1X camera looks like, and the stabilization looks good with the few odd stabilization jitters here and there. The ultra-wide is even better handheld from a stabilization point of view. We're back to filming on my mirrorless camera now, and the price of this phone might be the deal breaker for you right now, because it starts at £799 or $799 US, which is an $100 premium over the starting price of the Pixel 8 last year, with the same 128 gigabytes of storage. Tie this new higher price in with the fact that you can now get the Pixel 8 for £500, so £300 less, at least in the UK, and it becomes a question of whether the Pixel 9 is worth it. What I would say is definitely don't buy this phone right now at full price, especially if you don't need a phone right away. Simply because Google's pricing strategy is always to put the Pixels on sale very frequently. So there's a good chance that you will be able to pick up this phone for $100 to $150 off in the Black Friday sales, for example. I would recommend this right now if the Pixel 8 and 8A both didn't exist at a far lower price, which still offer great features and will likely see many of the AI software features added to them in the not too distant future too. However, this feels like a much more complete phone than the Pixel 8, with some updates that actually make a big difference to the quality of life in everyday use, such as the improved cameras, excellent fingerprint sensor, more premium design, and better battery life. Because of this, if you can get the phone at less than $700 when it goes on sale, I think it could be a fantastic option. I'm going to make a video soon comparing the Pixel 9 and Pixel 8A, because I think the latter could still be a great option and would save you potentially $400 over getting this phone. So perhaps consider subscribing if you want to see that comparison. If you want to see my full long-term review of the 8A, then you can watch that right here. Otherwise, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers.